Welcome to the Wonder Garden channel. All of us who care for orchids hope to have a truly brilliant orchid garden with beautiful clusters of flowers blooming season after season. But there is something that many people do not know. After the orchids finish blooming, the flower spikes that we usually cut off can actually still be used to create new orchid plants. That's right, from these flower spikes that seem to have no value left. If we know how to handle and care for them properly, we can completely stimulate them to develop into baby orchid plants. Using just a few very simple ingredients that are readily available right in your kitchen. This method is quite easy to perform, and anyone can try it at home. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the Wonder Garden channel so you won't miss upcoming videos sharing useful orchid care and propagation tips. And now, let's get started. You can see that this orchid spike was cut from orchids that had already finished blooming. However, to propagate from this flower spike, we need to choose sections of the spike that still have healthy dormant nodes that have not yet developed into flowers. These are the parts that have the potential to develop into new plants. After selecting a suitable dormant node, we will cut both ends of the spike segment so that each end is about 2 centimeters away from the node. This distance helps protect the dormant node and retain enough nutrients in the spike to support its development later. When cutting, you should use a very sharp and clean knife, then gently trim the cut surfaces so they become smooth and neat. This is very important because clean and smooth cuts help prevent crushing the orchid tissue, thereby reducing the chance for bacteria or fungi to enter. In addition to the English voice, we have now created dubbed voices in French, German, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Hindi, and Indonesian to help you understand the content more easily. Listen in your preferred language by opening the video and clicking on Settings, the gear icon, to select the appropriate audio language. After trimming both ends of the spike segment containing the dormant node, the next step is to use a little candle wax to apply to both cut ends of the orchid spike. Applying candle wax helps seal the cut surfaces, limiting water loss from the orchid spike while also preventing bacteria and fungi from entering the tissue. This is a small but very important step that helps increase the survival rate and development potential of the dormant node. To treat and stimulate these dormant nodes, today I will use lemon, a very familiar ingredient found in our kitchens. Lemon contains natural citric acid along with some compounds that have mild antibacterial properties, so it helps clean the surface of the orchid spike and limit the growth of fungi and bacteria. To prepare the solution, I will take about 1 small spoon of lemon juice and put it into a clean glass jar. Which country are you watching this video from? It's wonderful that we can connect with each other from all over the world. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit the subscribe button to support me and not miss any orchid care tips. The next ingredient I will use is honey. Honey will provide a natural source of nutrients and a small amount of sugar to nourish the orchid tissue, while also helping increase the recovery and development ability of the dormant nodes. I will use about 1 teaspoon of honey and add it together with the lemon juice prepared earlier. Next, add about 500 milliliters of clean water. Then stir well so the entire mixture dissolves and blends evenly together. When the honey and lemon juice are fully dissolved, we will obtain a very simple but useful natural solution to treat and stimulate the dormant nodes on the orchid spike to develop. After preparing the solution, I will place all the prepared orchid spike segments into the solution so that the spike pieces are completely submerged in the water. Soaking the orchid spikes in this solution helps the nutrients from the honey and lemon juice gently penetrate into the spike tissue, while also cleaning the surface and limiting the growth of bacteria or fungi. I will soak the orchid spike segments in the solution for about 20 to 30 minutes so that the solution has enough time to affect the spike. The remaining solution will be poured into a mist spray bottle and then lightly sprayed onto the orchids in the garden. This solution will indirectly supply a small amount of natural nutrients and beneficial compounds from honey and lemon to the orchids. When sprayed in the form of a fine mist, the solution can lightly adhere to the leaves and aerial roots, allowing the plant to absorb it gradually. As a result, the orchids will be supported in increasing vitality, their leaves becoming greener and their root systems developing more strongly. At the same time, the natural components in the solution also help clean the leaf surface and partly limit harmful bacteria or fungi. However, you should only spray a light mist, preferably in the early morning or cool afternoon, so that the orchids have time to absorb the nutrients and to avoid water remaining on the leaves for too long. After soaking in the solution for about 20 minutes, I will take the orchid spike segments out and begin the process of incubating the buds for propagation. To perform this step, I will prepare a plastic container like this. The container will help create a closed environment and maintain stable humidity, which is very suitable for stimulating the dormant nodes to develop. Next, I will place a thin layer of moss inside the container. Moss retains moisture very well, so it will help maintain the necessary humidity for the orchid spikes, and create favorable conditions for the dormant nodes to gradually awaken and begin developing into new shoots. Then I will place the orchid spike segments on top of the moss layer so that the dormant nodes face upward and are not completely covered by the moss. This allows the nodes to receive moisture while still having enough air to develop. During the propagation process, every 2 to 3 days, we will spray a light mist of water to keep the moss moist. Note that the moss should only be kept moderately moist, not too wet, because excessive humidity can cause the orchid spikes to rot. After 3 months, surprisingly, the orchid spikes I prepared earlier have developed into small orchid plants. You can see that the leaves are glossy green, and the roots have begun to grow strongly and attach very well. This proves that from flower spikes that seem to have no value left, if we know how to treat them and create the right conditions, the dormant nodes on the orchid spikes can completely develop into new orchid plants. This is a very interesting way to propagate orchids and gradually increase the number of plants in your orchid garden. When the baby orchids have grown steadily and become strong enough, I will plant them into separate pots so they have more space to grow. For the growing medium, I will use pine bark because it is airy, drains well, and is very suitable for Phalaenopsis orchids. After placing the pine bark into the pot, I will cover the surface with a thin layer of moss to help maintain light moisture for the roots. Next, I will place the baby orchid naturally on the surface of the pot so that the roots rest comfortably on the growing medium, avoiding pressing or damaging the young roots that are developing. When the orchid roots are positioned properly and the growing environment is airy, the plant will quickly adapt and continue to grow strongly in the new pot. What do you think about this method of propagating orchids from flower spikes? If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and share the video so more orchid lovers can learn about this method. And especially, please subscribe to the Wonder Garden channel so you don't miss the newest videos about orchid care tips, recovery methods, and propagation techniques that I will continue to share in the future. Thank you for watching the video. Wishing you always have a healthy orchid garden filled with beautiful blooms.